The year was 1898, and the wide valleys of Montana territory stretched endlessly beneath. A bright summer sky, rolling green pastures, winding rivers, and towering pine-covered mountains surrounded the legendary Silver Creek Ranch, one of the largest cattle ranches in the territory. For years, people had spoken of its owner with admiration and respect. His name was Jacob Callahan. At 36, Jacob was everything people imagined when they thought of an Old West cowboy. Tall, broad-shouldered, and rugged, with dark hair beneath a weathered black hat, a neatly trimmed beard, and calm gray eyes that revealed years of hardship. He had earned every acre of his ranch through determination, honesty, and relentless work. Yet despite his success, Jacob always returned to an empty house. His parents had passed away years earlier, and the woman he had once planned to marry had died during a harsh winter fever outbreak. Since then, Jacob buried himself in work, believing loneliness was simply part of his life. One warm morning, Jacob rode across the ranch with his foreman, Ben Carter. "The cattle are healthy," Ben said. "The new pasture is ready." Jacob nodded. "What about the north fence? Finished yesterday." Ben smiled. "Everything's finally going right." Jacob looked toward the large white ranch house standing alone across the valley. "Not everything." Ben knew exactly what he meant. "You can't spend the rest of your life working from sunrise to midnight." Jacob chuckled quietly. "I've been doing that for 15 years, and you've been alone just as long." Jacob didn't answer. Sometimes silence said more than words ever could. That afternoon, Jacob rode into the small frontier town of Red Willow to purchase supplies. The streets bustled with wagons, horses, merchants, and travelers. As he tied his horse outside the general store, voices echoed from the nearby train station. A young woman stepped off the stagecoach, carrying nothing but a worn leather suitcase. She looked exhausted. Her light cream prairie dress was dusty from travel, and a faded brown shawl rested across her shoulders. Her dark brown hair was tied into a simple braided bun, but loose strands framed her face after the long journey. She looked around the unfamiliar town, searching for someone. No one came. The stagecoach rolled away, leaving her standing alone. Jacob noticed the disappointment in her eyes. Before he could continue walking, two rough-looking gamblers approached her, looking for work. One of them asked with a smirk. She nodded cautiously. "I need honest work." The men laughed. "We know a place." Jacob immediately stepped between them. "She won't be needing your help." The gamblers recognized him instantly. One muttered under his breath, "It's Callahan." The two men backed away without another word. Jacob turned toward the woman. "Are you all right?" She nodded. "Thank you. My name's Jacob Callahan." She smiled politely. "I'm Emma Brooks. You have family here?" She lowered her eyes. "No. Friends? No. Anyone expecting you?" Again, she quietly answered, "No." Jacob glanced at the worn suitcase. "You came here alone?" "Yes. I was promised a teaching position." She handed him a folded letter. Jacob read it. The school had closed months earlier because too many families had moved away. No one had bothered to send word. Emma had traveled hundreds of miles for a job that no longer existed. Jacob slowly folded the letter. "I'm sorry." She forced a small smile. "So am I." Jacob bought her lunch at the town cafe. They spoke for nearly an hour. Emma explained that both of her parents had passed away, leaving her with no home and very little money. She wasn't looking for sympathy, only an honest chance. Jacob admired that. Before leaving, the cafe owner quietly whispered to Jacob, "If she stays in town tonight, she be in trouble." Jacob already knew. Red Willow wasn't always kind to women traveling alone. He stepped outside with Emma. "Do you have anywhere to stay?" She hesitated. "No." Jacob looked across the busy street, then toward the distant hills where Silver Creek Ranch waited. An idea slowly formed in his mind. It sounded ridiculous, impossible, yet somehow it also felt right. He took a deep breath. "I need to ask you something." Emma looked at him curiously. "What is it?" Jacob rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. "My aunt is arriving from Boston next week." Emma waited. "She refuses to stop trying to arrange a marriage for me." Emma almost smiled. "I see." Jacob continued. "She only stay a few days." Then came the unexpected words. "Would you be my wife for a little while?" Emma stared at him in complete silence. "I'm sorry." "What?" A pretend marriage. I'll pay you fairly. You'll have a safe place to stay. You can leave whenever you find the life you truly want. Emma couldn't believe what she had just heard. A fake marriage? Jacob nodded. I know how strange it sounds. She folded her arms. Very strange. I've never asked anyone before. I should hope not. For the first time that day, both of them laughed. The silence that followed felt surprisingly comfortable. Emma looked toward the empty road leading out of town. She had no money, no family, no home, and no future waiting elsewhere. Finally, she looked back at Jacob. I have one condition. He nodded. What is it? You treat me with honesty. Jacob smiled warmly. You have my word. Emma slowly extended her hand. Then, for a little while, I'll be your wife. Neither of them realized that the agreement they had just made would change both of their lives forever. The morning sun bathed Silver Creek Ranch in brilliant golden light as Emma Brooks stepped onto the front porch of the large white ranch house. It had been only a week since she had accepted Jacob Callahan's unusual proposal, yet life already felt completely different. The empty, silent house that had once echoed with loneliness was now filled with the comforting sounds of conversation, fresh coffee, and quiet laughter. Jacob watched from the barn as Emma fed the chickens and greeted every ranch hand with a warm smile. Even the toughest cowboys, men who rarely spoke more than a few words, had begun smiling whenever she walked past. She remembered every name, thanked everyone for their hard work, and somehow made the ranch feel like a true home again. Ben Carter rode over beside Jacob with a grin. I've never seen this place so alive. Jacob smiled without taking his eyes off Emma. Neither have I. Ben chuckled. You hired a wife for a week. Jacob laughed softly. I know. ... and somehow she already runs the whole ranch. A few days later, Jacob's wealthy Aunt Margaret arrived from Boston in a polished carriage. She stepped down wearing an elegant Victorian dress and expensive gloves, expecting to find the same lonely nephew she had visited for years. Instead, Emma welcomed her with a warm smile. Welcome to Silver Creek Ranch, Aunt Margaret. Margaret looked surprised. And you must be Jacob's wife. Emma nodded politely. It's a pleasure to meet you. Inside the ranch house, Emma had prepared a beautiful frontier dinner. Fresh bread, roasted beef, vegetables from the garden, and homemade pie covered the long wooden table. Margaret quietly watched the couple throughout the evening. She noticed the way Jacob pulled out Emma's chair, the way Emma smiled whenever Jacob spoke, the way they laughed together over simple stories. To everyone else, they looked like a happily married couple. Only Jacob and Emma knew the truth. Later that night, Emma stood alone beneath the stars outside the house. Jacob joined her. You were wonderful today. Emma smiled. I was terrified. You didn't look terrified. I've never pretended to be someone's wife before. Jacob laughed. I haven't pretended to be someone's husband before. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The cool Montana breeze carried the scent of pine trees across the valley. Finally, Emma asked softly, Do you ever regret asking me? Jacob looked at her. Not for a second. Emma lowered her eyes, hiding the smile that slowly appeared on her face. The next morning, trouble arrived. 3 riders entered the ranch without permission. Their leader was Victor Harlan, a wealthy neighboring rancher known for buying struggling ranches by intimidation rather than honesty. Victor removed his black hat and smiled coldly. Morning, Callahan. Jacob stepped forward. What do you want? Victor looked toward Emma. I heard congratulations were in order. Jacob answered firmly. My personal life isn't your concern. Victor's smile faded. I came to make another offer. He handed Jacob a document. I'll buy Silver Creek Ranch. Jacob didn't even look at the paper. It's not for sale. Victor stepped closer. It will be. Emma noticed the threatening tone in his voice. Before leaving, Victor looked directly at her. I hope your new wife enjoys ranch life. His words carried an unsettling warning. When the riders disappeared down the road, Emma quietly asked, Who is he? Jacob sighed. A man who's wanted this land for years. Will he come back? Jacob looked toward the distant hills. I'm afraid he will. That evening, heavy rain clouds rolled across the mountains. Strong winds swept through the valley. As ranch hands hurried to secure livestock, Emma discovered something unexpected inside the old ranch office. Hidden beneath a loose floorboard was a small wooden box. Inside were faded letters tied together with a blue ribbon. She recognized Jacob's handwriting. The letters had never been mailed. Each one was addressed to Sarah, the woman Jacob had once planned to marry before illness took her life. Emma carefully read only the first few lines before gently placing them back. She closed the box. Those letters weren't meant for her eyes. When Jacob entered the room, he immediately noticed the open floorboard. His expression changed. "I'm sorry," Emma whispered. "I wasn't searching." Jacob quietly picked up the wooden box. "I know." After a long silence, he finally spoke. "I wrote those letters after she died." Emma listened quietly. "I never had the courage to throw them away." "You don't have to." Jacob looked at her. "For years I thought my life ended with hers." His voice became softer. "But lately ... He stopped speaking. Emma waited. Jacob smiled gently. "Lately this house doesn't feel empty anymore." Emma felt her heart race. Neither of them mentioned the agreement they had made. Neither wanted to, because somewhere between pretending, something real had quietly begun to grow. But neither of them realized that Victor Harlan had already started putting a dangerous plan into motion, one that would test not only Silver Creek Ranch, but the bond Jacob and Emma had begun to build. The first light of dawn spread across the rolling hills of Silver Creek Ranch, painting the Montana prairie in shades of gold. A gentle breeze moved through the tall grass as horses grazed peacefully near the wooden fences. From the porch of the ranch house, Jacob Callahan stood quietly with a cup of coffee in his hand, watching another beautiful morning begin. But inside his heart, there was a storm. He knew the agreement with Emma was almost over. She had promised to stay only for a while. That while had nearly come to an end. Inside the ranch house, Emma carefully folded her clothes into the same worn leather suitcase she had carried into Red Willow weeks earlier. She paused as she looked around the bedroom. When she first arrived, this room had felt like a stranger's house. Now, it felt like home. She smiled sadly. "I knew this day would come." A soft knock sounded at the door. Jacob stood outside. "I made breakfast." Emma nodded. "I'll be there." Neither mentioned the suitcase. Neither wanted to. During breakfast, the silence between them felt heavier than words. Finally, Emma looked up. "My teaching certificate arrived yesterday." Jacob slowly nodded. "I heard the school in Pine Creek is hiring." "Yes, they offered me a position." Jacob forced a smile. "That's wonderful." But it didn't feel wonderful. Not to him. Later that afternoon, the peaceful ranch was interrupted by galloping horses. Ben Carter rode toward the house. Jacob stepped outside. "What happened?" "It's Victor Harlan. He and his men are driving cattle through the western fence." Jacob immediately saddled his horse. Emma looked at him. "Be careful." Jacob smiled. "I always am." When Jacob reached the western pasture, Victor Harlan and 6 armed riders stood waiting. Victor smiled coldly. "I warned you." Jacob dismounted. "You'll leave my ranch." Victor laughed. "I don't think so." Before anyone could move, Sheriff Dawson and several deputies rode over the hill. Victor frowned. "What is this?" The sheriff unfolded official papers. "Victor Harlan, you're under arrest." Victor stared in disbelief. "For what?" The sheriff smiled. "Land fraud, cattle theft, and intimidation." Several ranchers from neighboring properties rode forward. Each one carried documents proving Victor had stolen land for years. Ben whispered. Emma gathered all the evidence. Jacob turned in surprise. Emma had quietly spent weeks helping every family Victor had cheated. She hadn't told anyone. Victor lowered his head as the deputies placed him in handcuffs. "This isn't over." The sheriff answered calmly. "It is now." By sunset, the ranch celebrated. Music echoed from the barn. Children laughed. Neighbors filled the yard with food and stories. Silver Creek Ranch had never felt so alive. Jacob found Emma standing alone beneath the old oak tree. "You saved more than this ranch." Emma smiled gently. "I just helped." Jacob shook his head. "You gave people hope." She looked toward the sunset. "My train leaves tomorrow." The words struck him harder than any punch. "So soon?" She nodded. "A promise is a promise." Jacob looked at the ground. "Yes." The next morning, Emma carried her suitcase onto the porch. Ben stood quietly beside the wagon. The ranch hands removed their hats as she walked past. Every one of them had grown to respect her. Jacob helped place the suitcase into the wagon. Neither spoke. The wagon started moving, only a few yards. Then, Jacob suddenly called out, "Emma!" The wagon stopped. She turned around. Jacob walked toward her, slowly, nervously. "I asked you to become my wife, for a little while." Emma smiled softly. "You did. I thought I needed someone to fool my aunt." He laughed quietly. "I was wrong." She waited. Jacob took one more step. "You turned this ranch into a home. You brought laughter back into my life. You healed places I thought would stay broken forever." His voice trembled. "I don't want you to leave." Emma's eyes filled with tears. Jacob continued, "This time, I'm not asking you to pretend. I'm asking because I love you." The entire ranch stood silently watching. Emma slowly walked toward him. She gently took his hands. "I stopped pretending a long time ago." Jacob looked at her in surprise. "I fell in love with you too." A smile spread across his face. For the first time in many years, the lonely cowboy looked completely at peace. Jacob reached into his pocket. He removed a small velvet box. Inside rested a beautiful gold wedding ring. "Emma Brooks, will you stay and truly become my wife?" Tears rolled down her cheeks as she smiled. "Yes, with all my heart." Jacob slipped the ring onto her finger. The ranch erupted with cheers and applause. Ben laughed louder than anyone. Even Jacob's Aunt Margaret wiped away happy tears. Several months later, Silver Creek Ranch had become one of the happiest places in Montana. Emma reopened the small frontier school for local children. Jacob expanded the ranch. Families returned. New homes were built. Every evening, Jacob and Emma sat together on the porch, watching the sun set over the endless prairie. Sometimes the greatest love stories begin with a simple agreement. Sometimes a temporary promise becomes a lifetime commitment. And sometimes, the person who arrives only for a while becomes the one you never wanted to live without. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more emotional Old West romance, cowboy adventures, and unforgettable frontier stories every week. Thank you for watching.